Hello, so I'm Hayley King from Sienna Smile Charity. We're really pleased to introduce you to our good friend, Nova, who is an incredible person who inspires us every day. And we are so happy to have her speaking for us today for our World Sickle Cell Awareness Day webinar. So Nova, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Hayley. Thanks for having me. So my name is Nova Reid and I do many things. I'm a human first, Black woman second, and I am a TED speaker, anti-racism educator and activist. And essentially I help people be the change that they want to see in the world by courageously unlearning their racism and challenging systems of discrimination. So that's it in a nutshell.
You are absolutely awesome. So I'm not sure how long I've known you for, Nova. It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been a while.
Yeah, gonna show our ages now.
Yeah, and to see the journey that you've been on and are still continuing on has just been so liberating because, like you said, Nova is such an incredible human being, and we love you because you give everybody the inspiration to just do better, be better, and just know that whatever we put our minds to, we can achieve. You are the perfect example of that. So Nova, please tell us a bit about your job role. You've just kind of explained a little bit about what you do, but how did you get into what you are doing now?
Oh, well, none of it was planned, Hayley.
I know.
They always ask you at school, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there's this very rigid pathway that you set you on, you know, to try and put you through university and to do all these things that put you in this box. And I never fitted in these boxes. So what I do is quite holistic, and one day is never the same. And I keep forgetting to say I'm also an author, so I have a book coming out in September, but one day is never the same. So I do a lot of writing. I have a book that's coming out. As part of that book, I have to do lots of promotion around it, marketing, publicity, public speaking, so doing lots of talking on TV. I have an online anti-racism academy, so for people who want to learn language, knowledge, tools on how to be anti-racist and are worried about causing offence or saying the wrong thing, and I really wanted to understand what racism really looks like and what we can all do about it. I have an online course that takes people through that. So there's well, to be fair, I have a team that helps manage the tech side of that, but it's uploading content, it's, you know, the recording of videos for that. So there's that. And I also do consultancy with a small number of organisations. So I work with charities right through to theatre companies, right through to organisations like BT, in helping them understand anti-racism, allyship at work, and what we can do about it. So, and then there's public speaking. So I do a lot of public speaking as well. I have a TED Talk and things like that. So those are the kind of main strands, but what I do in my day-to-day really, really varies. And I like that. I love that it's not the same and it's flexible. And yeah, some days it's really boring and admin heavy. Because I love people. I'm also creative at heart, so I struggle with the admin side, but you know, it's necessary when you run your own business. So real mix of things.
Good. And you do everything so well, so congratulations and well done, because we're very proud of you.
Thank you.
So when it comes to people with sickle cell, there are very many situations that they find themselves in where they need to really advocate for themselves, to be heard, to be seen, to be understood, to have empathy from others, compassion from others. What advice would you give to people, not just with sickle cell, but in a circumstance where they need to speak up and be heard? What advice would you give them to how to efficiently advocate for yourself?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things I would say, and I say this from somebody, like, you're seeing and I'm not a finished product. You're seeing somebody who's worked on herself all of my life. I've had nearly 4 decades of working on myself, and there are times when I've not been able to advocate for myself, where I have felt unable to have my voice heard, why I felt very low in my confidence, where I felt worthless. So you're seeing a version of me that is very rooted and grounded at the moment, but I'm not always like that, and it's taken me a lot of time to get here. So I just want to preface that. It's having a real great support team around you, so family and friends who understand you, who can, if you're having a difficult day where you're not feeling confident and you're frustrated about not being heard, or you're not feeling strong, whatever it is for you, that you've got people around you who can just listen and hold space for you, and maybe they can support and advocate on your behalf when you don't feel able to. Because a lot of what happens is we're so often not heard. Sometimes when we finally have the courage to speak up, we're so often not heard, or we're not believed, or people will say, oh, it's not that bad, and then we have our experiences invalidated. So it's really important that there are people around you who can validate what you're feeling in that moment, and not try and talk you out of it, or, you know, move you along, but just say,
or dismiss it.
Yeah, it's really hard, like, I'm here for you and I'm listening. What do you need? What can I do to help? So support network is the first thing. And then, you know, when you are feeling more rooted and more grounded, to advocate for yourself, it's sometimes, I find, if it's a specific circumstance where you're trying to advocate with a medical professional, or you're trying to advocate in your place of work or in your school, and you keep getting the same resistance, it's sometimes writing down what those things are, and then thinking about, well, how could I answer that? So I have one person that I work with quite closely, and she has a daughter who must be 12 or 13 years old, and she often has to advocate for herself. And she's now started to write down scenarios. So when this scenario happens, this is what I can say. When that scenario happens, this is what I can say. So sometimes when things happen and they catch us off guard, we don't know what to do or say, but sometimes practicing or thinking about our way around things can be really helpful. So
that's really good advice.
Writing things down. I find if it's a medical setting and you're not being heard by people who are your caregivers, or supposed to be your caregivers, or you're just overwhelmed by sort of medical jargon, I ask the medical practitioner's permission if I can record them. So sometimes I might record a consultancy session with them, so that if I've got questions afterwards, I can play that back and then ask the next time. So those are other ways we can advocate for ourselves as well. So giving ourselves space and time and other people to support us.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice, and I've never actually thought about that before. Is sometimes you do feel like a little bit overwhelmed by a situation and you can't think properly, and I say this to a lot of parents, that with all the hope in the world, there are scenarios where Sienna is rushed to hospital at 3 a.m. I can't even remember my own name, let alone what milligram medication she's taking, the last time that she had paracetamol, ibuprofen, how long the pain started. My brain just goes fuzzy, and I cannot think. So what I do now, that as soon as Sienna starts to feel unwell, I will write the date, the time, I'll write down what time she had paracetamol, and then I'll take that with me, because it's all on paper and I don't need to put pressure on myself
to remember
all those things, because it's just my brain just doesn't work.
Do you know what's happening, without going into too much neuroscience, but you're going into a stress response, you're going into flight mode, and there's a part of your brain that is just sending every resource to try and deal with whatever the threat or potential threat is. And so the thinking brain, the brain that we need to analyze and process, like, that's gone offline, because it's sending all your resources for you to be able to deal with whatever this threat is. So there's a reason why everything's fuzzy, like, you can't, because your brain's it's sending resources elsewhere. So writing things down, making a vocal recording things can really support you for when you're able to, right, okay, what do I need to do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And to be honest with you, just day to day, I always carry a notebook with me. Even if it's like, oh, I have a good idea, or something pops in my head, I am too busy for my own good.
Yeah, there's that too. We hold a lot. Yeah.
I really struggle with remembering things, but writing down scenarios and thinking about the art, that is really, really good advice. And it's something I will definitely start to use myself. So the next question that I've got for you is, how should people approach scenarios in which they are made to feel uncomfortable? So whether that's by a doctor, a family member, a friend, I have found myself in situations where I feel sometimes people just don't get something, and you're trying to explain maybe like a quite an emotional event, or something that's hurt you, and people will just be like, oh, get over it. Or let's say they're feeling really, really low, and friends and family are like, oh, what's your problem? Just, snap out of it, kind of thing. How do we relay how we're feeling to people without getting defensive or argumentative or anything like that? How do we deal with those situations, and try and get people to take the time to understand what they're being told?
Yeah, I think it depends who the interaction is with, because there are certain scenarios or settings where it feels safer to be able to express our feelings and what it is that we need than others. So there's kind of a risk assessing that needs to go on. Because some people just don't have the capacity, and is that going to be worth my energy or not? So there's that. But then assuming that it is people that care about us or are, interested or curious in learning more, it's just holding a boundary and saying, I sense that you're finding it difficult to hear me. And it's making me feel X, or I feel X. In order for us to continue this conversation, I'm going to need X, Y, and Z. So it's being able to hold a boundary, it's being able to communicate how you're experiencing them, and say, I'm finding it hard to have this conversation with you while you're not listening, or while I feel like you're not listening, or while you're dismissing me, or whatever it might be. And these are the things that I need for us to have this conversation. And then if they're not able to listen and stop talking over you and stop dismissing, or whatever it might be, then it's holding a boundary and saying, like, this is an important discussion, but I can't communicate with you while you're not listening to me, or while you're shouting, or whatever it might be. So it's just holding a boundary, or perhaps saying, right now I'm experiencing X. How are you experiencing things right now?
Okay.
And it's not always easy, but it's like, in order for me to be able to be honest, I need to be listened to. And if people are not listening or dismissing, then it's a pointless exchange. It's a waste of everybody's energy.
Yeah. I had this thing where I think this happened to me a few times, when somebody says to you, well, how are you?
Yes.
And I have to think, well, should I just say, yeah, I'm fine, or yeah, I'm doing okay, when actually I'm not. I'm having a really bad day, and I really want to say a whole load of stuff to you that is not going right, but it's just quicker and easier to just say, oh yeah, I'm fine. But then somebody said to me, I don't know if I read it or something, but they have a friend where they say to their friend before they offload, they'll say to them, do you have the emotional energy at the moment to take on some negative things that I'm going to discuss? And I thought, gosh, I wish more people did say that, because when somebody just calls you and they just rant and you feel so drained after.
Yeah.
If you've had a bad day as well, sometimes that can just finish us off. I just thought, that's such a really nice thing to say to somebody. Is like, I want to have a bit of a rant, but can you manage with it right now?
Yeah, I guess what you're asking is like, can you hold space for me? I think that's what
Yeah,
we're doing, and I don't like to label like human emotions negative or positive, because
yeah,
they're all human. But what we do is
yeah,
we put positive emotions on pedestals, and we find that other stuff, the sadness, the heaviness, the grief, intolerable, but they're all part of being human. So
yeah.
I think it's about being really mindful of who your support network is, because
Mm,
if you have a robust support network, you know that you're going to be able to
share anything.
express whatever you need to share
Mm,
and be heard. And they might, someone might say, I'm really sorry that you're having a hard time like that. I'm having a hard time too. So I'm not going to be able to I don't know. They might be able to hold a boundary around that and say, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm having a hard time too. Why don't we pick up on this again tomorrow when we're both had a good night's sleep, or that we can talk
yeah,
more. So it's not them saying, I can't hear you and I don't want to listen to your sadness. It's them holding that, honoring that, but also saying, let's get a good night's sleep. Let's have a good, let's do things that resource us, and let's talk about some of this in the morning, or whatever it might be. So when people ask me how I am, I will say, do you want the frivolous answer, or do you want the honest answer? I'll let them pick.
that's a good way to do it as well. Because sometimes I feel like you said, I am a big believer in not pretending that you're okay when
Yeah.
you're not. And so, but I feel like sometimes we just go into like autopilot when we're
Yeah.
asked a question. Yeah, I'm fine. How are you? And actually, I could have had a really, really bad day. And yeah, my nearest and dearest will probably get to hear all about it. But just genuinely, like through the day, I will just kind of just be like, yeah, I am fine.
Yeah.
And it is like I always say to the kids, if you feel like you want to cry, cry. If you feel like you're annoyed, be annoyed. That's okay, as long as you don't upset anybody else or hurt something or break something,
Yeah.
whatever. So you are right, is we don't always have to just share positive.
No, and I don't think that's got us in a very healthy culture either, particularly
No,
in Britain, where we just bypass our emotions and we glorify kindness and positive and light and all rainbows and all that. And I'm like, sometimes life isn't positivity and light and rainbows, and
yeah,
that's a normal human condition and experience, especially in the climate that we're in now. And if it's only acceptable to say I'm fine, and it's not acceptable to say, no, you know what, I'm having a really bad day and I'm struggling, then we've gone wrong somewhere. Like, we have
yeah,
gone wrong somewhere as human beings. So it is important that we have people around us that when they ask us how we're doing, they actually want to know the answer. If you don't want to know the answer, don't ask.
yeah. But this is the thing, is what I'm saying about this autopilot. Every conversation starts with, hi, how are you? And everyone expects yeah, I'm fine, thank you, let's move on to what we're actually going to talk about. It's just like this routine every day. I must get at least 20 emails that start off with like, hey, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Whereas actually, if we did actually dive into yes, but you're right, we really do need to talk about exactly how we're feeling, open and honestly. And I think that's one thing that, as a parent of a child with sickle cell, I do speak very open and honestly about the good and the bad and the ugly, because I think it's important for people to understand the severity, the trauma. And as a caregiver, it's very traumatic and very I've had to deal with a lot of really dark stuff personally, because seeing your child fighting for their life is extremely traumatic. And I've been through these stories where I was always what was deemed as the strong woman, the strong parents, the oh, you're so this, you're so that, Hayley. And then, whereas in actual fact, there was a time that I remember I was so broken, I couldn't even hide my tears from Sienna, because I always felt that I had to be strong and brave for her, because I didn't want her to feel upset or whatever. But there was a moment in time where I was by her hospital bed, and I didn't know if she was going to come out of hospital alive. And I just remember I couldn't breathe. I was just so distressed, and I probably, in most circumstances, I probably would have just said, oh, mummy's just going to pop out and get a drink, and I would have had a cry by myself. But I was just so overwhelmed with this love for this little child that I couldn't cover it. And then I just thought, actually, I want to show her that being brave doesn't mean not crying or not breaking or not being, I don't even know why people say strong, because strong to me means lifting weights kind of thing. It doesn't mean like not crying. So I don't know why people say, oh, and the other thing is I don't have a choice to, you know, I have to be the one who has to try and make sure that Sienna is always safe, always looked after. And as a parent, I have to do that for my child. I'm not doing it because I'm forced to, or that is what a parent does kind of thing. So when you were talking about, you know, using the right words and stuff, I do feel like people should think about some of the words they use to describe those scenarios, especially when people say, oh, you're so strong, Hayley. I just think, well, I'm not sure what you mean by that. I don't physically, emotionally, like, and strong, like I said, it doesn't mean that I don't cry. It doesn't mean that I don't get scared. So yeah, I'm gonna just go, go on. Sorry about that.
No, it's great, but it's again, like, and you know, it's unimaginable for me and most parents what that must feel like to witness your child suffering and wondering if you are going to outlive them. Like, that's unimaginable. That's unimaginable. So I want to hold that, because that is huge. And it must mean that you're also constantly in a state of hypervigilance, like you're nervous
all the time,
like that's it's ongoing, right? It's ongoing, persistent trauma or fear of. And so that, like, again, the language around breaking, like, that's not, to me, it's not breaking. Like, it's a normal response to what you're dealing with. So yeah, language is really, really important for me, because we're really good at sort of the bypassing and the strong piece, to me, is a form of dehumanization. Like we're superhuman or something. Like, we're not. We're just dealing with what life has thrown at us. And it might be admirable because we're dealing with it in a way that other people think is inspirational or courageous or brave, but we're dealing with what's been thrown at us. Sure, if you had a choice, you wouldn't want this for anyone. So yeah.
And I think that's being, like you said, super vigilant. So 24/7, even if Sienna's not with me, I'm always on guard, ready, waiting for something to happen, because sickle cell is spontaneous. We don't know when anything's going to happen. So it's really important, even when Sienna's asleep. I think I mentioned in one of the other interviews that I have suffered from insomnia for quite some time, and when Sienna's not well, I am constantly like, what if something happens and I don't wake up? So I'm a very, very light sleeper. And I was watching something the other day, and they were saying that when you are a light sleeper, you don't have that good quality deep sleep. So even though you may have been in bed for 10 hours, you've probably really only had maybe 30 minutes of that good deep sleep. So that's something I definitely need to work on.
And also, you know, more to the point for you and anyone who's listening, it's really important that caregivers are supported as well. Like, you need your support, your respite, and all of these things to help you, you know, process and cope with the hypervigilance and soothe your nervous system, and, you know, help with the sleep, all of those things. So yeah,
definitely. I think that's like us as an organization, is a lot of places will just support the person with the health condition or whatever it is. But actually, we live as a whole family unit. And me as a parent, I have a lot of emotional distress that I go through because of Sienna having sickle cell and seeing her in those scenarios. But my son, as Sienna's younger brother, he's so terrified when she's in hospital. So not only does he have to be taken out of his home because he has to go and stay with nanans or something like that, then he doesn't get to see how Sienna is. So he's terrified that something bad's going to happen. He doesn't know. He's just waiting for somebody to tell him if she's okay, where she is. So it does impact the whole family unit, definitely. And I really wish that a lot more people would take that into consideration and appreciate that. Yeah, even with my mum, you know, the worry that she has knowing that when Sienna's in hospital, it is really, really tough. But you know that I like to talk a lot. No,
well, she's worried about all of you. But I learned that when I used to work in mental health for about 10 years, and it's the same thing. Yes, the person that I worked directly with people who are experiencing mental health crisis, but that impacts so many, you know, impacts everybody who cares about them and the people that we interact with. So yeah, taking a more of a holistic view is much more useful and human, because we don't operate in silos.
yeah. That's it, definitely. And yeah, like as a family unit, it's so important that everybody receives support. So even on like our family fun days and stuff like that, everybody is invited, mum, dad, siblings, because it's so important that we all meet others that are in our situation. So yeah, it's really nice when you do get people that understand that. So we are asking all of our guest speakers, if you had, I don't know why I call it a bucket list, because I feel like a bucket list is so, but a goals list, let's call it a life goals list maybe. If you had one, what would be at the very top and why?
I mean, it's different now because I'm fatigued. I have a book coming out imminently that I've been working at I've been overextending to meet deadlines and things. So all I can think of is rest and respite. So it's not huge, but like at some point I would love to live in the Caribbean and host a biannual retreat for people who want to center their healing. And I would and when I'm not doing the retreat, I'm chilling, I'm in nature, I'm just at a really slow pace, I'm writing, I'm being creative, and yeah, that's probably a longer term thing, but just that opportunity to create something that contributes towards people's healing in some way, on this beautiful Caribbean island. Where
I know somebody that will be there.
Well, you'll be welcome with open arms. But yeah, that's a little dream of mine.
For me, I have it in my head that I just want to live near the coast anywhere. I don't care where, but I find water very healing.
Same.
Very calming. I'm happiest when I'm in water or near water. So if I could move near a coast somewhere, I would be in my element.
All I'm going to say to that is move to a coast somewhere where the tide isn't coming in and out. Like I went to the beach. Where was I? I went to a Norfolk beach last week. Glorious, because I felt appalled to be by the water and go for a swim in the sea. I turn up and there's no sea. The tide is way out. I'm walking like in the middle of where the ocean would be, and I'm where's the sea?
So
I've never seen anything like it.
So we went to Southend a few weeks ago, and the same thing happened. So we were like, we'll get there, we'll get to the beach kind of late morning-ish. When we got there, we couldn't even see the water. That's how far. And so Teo and I were like, let's try, because I think we were walking for about 45 minutes and we still didn't reach the water.
Yeah.
And Mum, we were calling Mum, we're like, where, we can't see what part of the beach you were on. And she's like, you basically just look like little ants. I don't even know where you are. So I'm waving, going, we're here. We were so far, and honestly, we still didn't even reach the water. It was pathetic.
Like, I've never been like, I'd love to understand the nature and science behind it, because you go to the Caribbean and the sea is there.
Yeah.
Whatever time of day it's there. So I did have a chuckle, because I just wanted to be in the seawater, and the tide was out until I think we arrived at midday, and the tide wasn't coming in again until 9:30 p.m. So be specific about where by this coast you want to be.
I will, because otherwise I'll be, and I was saying to Teo, because the water did start to rise a little bit, and I said to him, it will be just our luck that we get halfway back and it's like really, really high. So I was like, come on, let's start walking back again, because otherwise we're going to get caught short. But it was really funny, because I'd never experienced like that before. It was just so far out. But next time we must check the times. Yes. Honestly. But Nova, I just want to say a huge thank you. It's always such an honor to talk to you, and you are incredibly inspiring for not just us but everybody. Can you quickly just tell us a little bit about your book, please?
Yes, I can. So I've written a book called The Good Ally, which is out in September. It's also available for pre-order for people who want to dive in early, but it's a book that walks people through a process of how to become anti-racist. But so the secret sauce behind it is that it is framed as an anti-racism book, but it's really about collective healing and addressing parts of ourselves that we've hidden or that we bypass, and things that make us feel shame, and how we confront that, unlearn it, move through and heal, and understand like where we've all come from, what our ancestors did to each other, how that's impacting people today, and what we can start to do about it to be better humans and citizens of the world. So yeah, The Good Ally.
Good. So I'm going to go off and pre-order mine now. Where can people watch your TED Talk?
So if you just type in TED Nova Reid, it will come up. Failing that, novareid.com, it's on there as well, but just put TED Nova Reid in Google and it will come up. Okay, amazing. Like I said, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy lady, and we really, really appreciate the inspiration that you've given us today, and such good quality advice, and we cannot wait to see you again soon. My pleasure. Anything for Sienna's smile and you. Oh, thank you so much. Pleasure. Take care. Bye.